This episode of Recovery is Possible is brought to you by Retreat Behavioral Health, where there are endless possibilities for recovery. Retreat provides quality care at their leading mental health and substance use treatment centers, which are designed to offer patients truly personalized and comprehensive programs that are tailored to their needs. Retreat Substance Use and Mental Health Treatment Centers in Palm Beach County, Florida, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and New Haven, Connecticut do everything in their power to ensure that patients receive the highest quality treatment in a safe and comfortable setting. Reach out today at retreatbehavioralhealth.com or call at 855-802-6600 for more information. Hey everybody, this is Mike Van Meter, and welcome to Recovery is Possible. And we are very excited today to have on the program Hilary Phelps. Now, you might remember Hilary was on this podcast about a year ago, and we were talking to her about a lot of the work that she's involved in. She told us her story, very, very powerful story. And if you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to that podcast. And over this last year, Hilary and I have talked about some of the work that she was planning on doing, and a year makes a big difference, because we talk about the things that we want to do, we plan for those things, and then, in recovery, we have a chance to complete those things. And that's one of the gifts of recovery, is being able to plan out ahead, envision your goals and your dreams, and then achieve them. And one of the things that she did was work on a coaching program. And before we get her in to explain what she has been doing, I do want to point out that there are many, many, many different avenues in recovery. There's a lot of programs that are available to you, and that's one of the things I do now in my job is talk to the patients about the resources that are available to them. You can see therapists, you can go to treatment, you can do outpatient, you can do sober living, you can all sorts of different. There's like 600 various programs that you can be involved in, and one of the many resources is coaching. And we're going to talk about what that is and what that entails, and why would you want to go that path if that's something that you've looked into. And Hilary's going to tell us all about that. And she's a great friend, great guest, and I want her to tell you exactly what this is all about. And with that, Hilary, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a little while, huh?
Me. It's been a little while. Yeah, catching up a little bit on what you're doing. You've been busy. I've been busy. I know. It's like, that's the beauty and the benefit of recovery, right, too, is that we get to do all these really wonderful things that maybe we just used to talk about in the past,
Well, tell us what you've been up to. Get us caught up on this last year.
Oh, my goodness. So the last, I think I shared this in my first one. When I was younger, I was an information seeker, and I still am. I love learning. I love acquiring knowledge. I love using knowledge. And so throughout, I've been, I had to think about that, 16 years sober. And I've had a lot of modalities. Like I think I shared in my first one, I went to treatment. 12 steps were a huge part of my recovery. It was the foundation of my sobriety. But I also used a lot of other things like meditation and breath work and mindfulness and yoga, things like that. Coaching. I've worked with a couple of coaches. And so those are really important for me. And I don't know, people joke and they say, sobriety 2.0, sobriety 4.0, you get sober, then we get to do all these wonderful things of just continuously being better humans. And so last year I went through it's a holistic coaching program, and it's emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. And so it's taking all four of those bodies into, understanding that those four things and those four components make up people. And so me focusing on my emotional health, my physical health, my mental health, and my spiritual health, I found have been really beneficial and helpful for me becoming the best person that I can be, first for myself and then second for others. And so I went through a really beautiful program, and I worked and I got certified to do coaching. And so it's not, sober specific, but what I really wanted to do is I found that as a woman, I've gone through, and men too, but my experience as a woman has been that I've gone through these transitions in life. Sobriety was one, having a child was another, getting a divorce was another. And we have these kind of transitions and iterations where we have the opportunity to become better. And with all those opportunities, I kind of, we talk about in the program, peeling that onion, peeling that back and exposing the person that we are. And sometimes it feels really raw. And so for me, those opportunities were growth moments. And I had, leaned on some coaches there, and I wanted to be able to lend that support and be that person for women who are also experiencing any kind of transition. And transition can be anything, right? Like it could be, having a child, like what does that look like? That changes our life. It transitions us into another, a different kind of person. Transitioning from work, working a 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship, what does that look like? Getting sober, going through a divorce, maybe all the children have left for college, like what now? Because as women, in my experience, again, in my opinion, I feel like some of us, self-sacrifice for our children or for our partners or for our career or whatever that is. And what I really wanted to do is have women come home to themselves. What is it that I like? What does my voice say? I want to honor that inner person that maybe I've ignored for a little while or, haven't paid as much attention to. And I really want to get back to her.
Yeah. And that I really like, I'll tell you, that's a very, very good point. And I think a lot of people don't dwell a whole lot on a point that you just made there, and that in life we go through stages, and in recovery we go through changes or chapters, if you will, because you said 16 years this year, and I'm in 12 years or almost 12 years of recovery, and your recovery after that amount of time doesn't look quite the same as it does in that first year, and those transitions that you go through and the stages, and you just highlighted something else too, and that is that in recovery we start to look at things that we ignored or weren't aware of. I think that's a lot of what recovery is. I think recovery is just, you've been so numb from alcohol or drugs, whatever substance you were using when you came in, you weren't aware of many talents that you had, ambition. Before we came on the air, you and I were talking about some of the things that we're involved in, and it's a lot. You and I both are doing a lot, but you know what? That's the beauty of recovery, is you can do those things. And but I think it's with women in particular, and I know that that's a passion of yours, working specifically with women, because women do have a different journey, I think, because there are some expectations. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm not a woman, but I'm married, and I know that my wife feels certain expectations on her, both from the family and society and at work and things like that, and it can be difficult. And I know that that's one of the reasons what prompted you, and maybe go back. Let's go back to the beginning. What made you want to go into coaching, and what is your focal point now, and what is it you're trying to do with weight? Because it sounds like, now you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like your clientele is focused on women, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So first, when I was going through a transitional point in my life, I was exiting a marriage, and I found that everybody else's voice had kind of become louder than my own. I'd let other people's opinions and thoughts kind of take over, and I realized I wasn't really tuning into my own intuition and inner voice. And I think women are so powerfully intuitive, and we can kind of shut that down based on society or family or work or whatever, fill in the blank. That we can kind of shut that down and say, like, okay, well, these other people, and that's what I had found. I had found that I'd let other people's voices be louder and let them make decisions. And, what I realized was I had my own feelings and thoughts and joys and all of these things. And so when I was transitioning out of that, exiting that marriage and kind of finding my footing, I worked with this really powerful coach that, I don't believe in coincidences. I think God, spirit, universe, whatever it is, in the program, we say higher power, whatever it is that we believe in, I believe that they put people and things in your life when you need them the most. And I was introduced to this woman, and, I remember thinking, like, I don't understand. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just need some support. I'm really struggling right now. And I started working with her, and the 6 months I worked with her, I tell her every day, I'm like, you saved my life. And I say that because, I would never have been able to take this next step up into healing and being better if I hadn't gotten sober. So that was my first step. But working with her really allowed me to figure out what it was that I wanted. And that was really powerful. And I wanted to be able to be that person for other women who were struggling, because I look back now, it's kind of like you look at the behaviors of when you were drinking and you're like, oh my gosh, why, what do you mean I drank until I blacked out? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that and then got into a car. Like those things, they don't make sense now because we know better. And now I can look back on things that I was doing at, 10 years, 12 years of sobriety. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was speaking to myself that way. Or I can't believe that I, wasn't as mindful of my words towards others as I am today. And so it's just kind of that, for me, it was that next evolution of healing. And that was really important for me to be able to give back, because I know how alone and how lonely, which are two separate things, I felt in that process. And having somebody, it's like a sponsor almost on my side who really worked with me when I was struggling and raw was powerful and helpful. And I tell her, I'm like, you saved my life. And she's like, you saved yourself. Right. And so, like you said, I believe women have a different set of expectations in society. I also think that, women in recovery and I shared this, I think, on ours too, is that we carry a lot of that shame. I think it manifests in men as anger. And my experience is manifests as men in anger or volatility. And as women, it manifests in shame. And so being able to release that shame and have forgiveness of self was such a powerful tool for me. To be able to show up more present in my relationship with my son, in my relationship with friends and my family, in my work. And so I just really, we talk in the program, Pay It Forward. I really wanted to be able to give back that powerful experience that I had to other women. And so I called it, so the program, I called it The Right Room. Because what I realized was that, for the longest time, I felt like I was wrong. I felt like my voice was wrong. I felt like the relationship I was in was informing me that anything I did and what I said was not right, and so if I didn't conform to this, then I was wrong. And actually what I realized was that my voice wasn't wrong. I was just in the wrong room. And so what I wanted to,
nice.
Right? Yeah. And so what I wanted to offer women is the ability to find themselves in the right room, right? To find their voice. And it's not about, it's about surrounding yourself with people that see you for who you are. And that's really hard. And I feel like people in that kind of 10 to 15 years sometimes of sobriety go through that period of, in the beginning, it's very regimented and 12 steps and meetings. And this is what you do because you don't want to fucking die, right? Excuse me, you don't, right? You don't. You'll do. I did whatever anybody told me to do because I did not want to drink. I did not want to die. I knew what that looked like for me, and that wasn't an option. So I was like, "You tell me where to go, what to be, what. I'll do whatever. I just don't want to go back out and drink, use drugs, get behind the wheel of a car, kill. I don't want to do any of that." And so, then you kind of get a little bit of time, and we start to see okay. What's now what? Now I want to start adding in maybe some other things, this is where for me that outside community, outside of the rooms of the 12 steps and outside of people, who were sober started to come in, and I started to find friends who weren't sober, but weren't drunks like me, maybe they were like those people, that we talk about that have one glass of wine and you're like, huh?
Yeah, we call them the normies.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't understand this, So, and I started to find, women like that who were, normies, who were, in the program and who were normies, and that was really powerful, And I found that having community is just one of the best things I can do is surrounding yourself with people who support you for who you are, and that's the idea of being in the right room.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful because when we're drinking or drugging, as I mentioned earlier, you are really hiding what your talents, your abilities, whatever you have, and we all have that. Everybody has something that they bring to the table for the community, society, for their family, and drinking and drugging takes that away. It doesn't take it away; it covers it up. I'll put it that way. And it sounds like what you're doing is helping people uncover that and then get into the right room, as you mentioned. I tell patients this all the time, at the hospital, because they'll say to me, and I'll just take AA, for example, and everybody out there listening, understand there's a lot of programs. I'm not promoting any program. I'm just using an example here. Let's say you go to an AA meeting. You say, well, I went to a meeting, I didn't like it, or I went to a few meetings and I didn't like them. Well, you got to understand, though, and I tell the patients, well, then go to another meeting. Like that would go to another meeting. Eventually, you're going to find a group of people that you just, for whatever reason, you connect with. It could be the interests. It could be the topics, the format, the personalities. A lot of times it's something we can't put our finger on. You're just like, I feel comfortable in this group. But that expands beyond 12-step meetings. That's just even in your community, being around, because like you just talked about, being in a bad relationship or being with a group of people that bring you down, and I think that you have to ask yourself, and you're better suited to answer this than I am or explain this, that in our lives, if you really look back at your lives, I think a lot of us stay in relationships with others that are not healthy on a lot of levels. We stay with people that are not edifying us, that are not building us up, that are not helping us become the person that we could be. And part of recovery is being able to sort that out and being able to realize, is this relationship helping me or hurting me? And if it's hurting me, why am I here? And that now you get into the psychology of it. There's a lot of reasons why people stay in these bad relationships and why some people continue to find bad relationships. Right. But that's the stuff we got to work on.
Yeah, it goes back to those limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it, right? And so that is where kind of that coaching comes back to pointing. It's like, okay, well, why do you feel like you're not worth it? Or, okay, what is it about that? And sometimes at the end of the day, most of everything goes back to I'm not good enough. Everybody's kind of deep-seated fear is that I'm not good enough in this, I'm not good enough at that, I don't deserve this, I don't, right? It's that limiting belief that we're not enough. And so it's working on that. It's like, well, why do you feel like you're not enough? And it's just continuously digging, right? And once we've found that love for self, then we can answer those questions of, wait, why am I in this relationship? Why am I allowing my, whatever to talk to me, whomever, to talk to me that way? Or wait, why am I in a job that I don't love? I've been here for 10 years and it doesn't fulfill me anymore.
Yeah, it goes back to not being enough. And so once we can tap into that feeling of why we feel like we're not enough and we can come to that place of self-love, then we can answer those questions. Like, why am I staying in this relationship when I'm not valued, or I don't feel loved, or I don't feel supported, or why am I in this job that I've been in for 10 years and I don't like it? I wake up every morning miserable and I don't find joy in the work that I'm doing. And we had then the option, because we're responsible, we are 100% responsible, for the good and the bad in our life. So what I found is that everything comes back to those limiting beliefs, like the limiting beliefs that we're not enough. And at the end of the day, a lot of those enoughness, not being enoughness, is what a lot of people are feeling. And so being able to tap into that and finding that love and that self-compassion, and those, then we're able, once we kind of find that, then we're able to answer the questions like, why am I staying in this, toxic relationship? Or why am I staying in this job that I don't like? I've been here for 10 years, so I just got to stick it out. And it's like, but if every day it's not bringing you joy, that's your responsibility and your choice, right? And someone said to me, it's so spot on, that we are 100% responsible for the good and the bad in our life, because we get to choose, right? So we get to choose whether to stay or we get to choose whether to go. And sometimes that going is terrifying because it's that fear of the unknown, but we have a choice, and that feels really empowering. And
it does, but let me ask you this, because I know your focus, clientele, and you can tell us a bit more about that, but your clientele focuses on women. And let's address this for a second, because you were talking about expectations for women, and sometimes there are, we'd like to think that there aren't, but there are. Particularly, let's say you're a single mom, right? Let's say you're a single mom, and you hate your job, or you're in a relationship that is abusive, or whatever the situation may be, and you're thinking, but I don't want to be here, and I know that I don't want to be here, but I'm a single mom and I got a kid, and then reality comes in. I don't like this job, but I got to pay the bills. You know, it becomes difficult, right? I mean, sometimes, you know, we can't just jump out. Like maybe you're halfway through a government career and you're just miserable, but you know, yeah, but I'm halfway through and I got to get to retirement, and it becomes complicated, doesn't it? It becomes complicated.
And then that's a choice, right? Because we still have the power to choose. We can say like, look, I'm going to get a great, you know, package at the end of this. That's more important to me, so I'm going to stay, right? So we have the power to choose that, whether we say like, I'm miserable and at the end of the day, joy and happiness, and I want to hit my feet hit the ground in the morning. I want to wake up with like a passion for what I'm doing, or I'm choosing to stay because, you know, I'm going to get a great exit pass, whatever that, you know, that the other choice is, but we get to choose. And that's the power, and seeing that ability to choose is also really empowering, because then we are making the choice. Someone's not making it for us. And so sometimes it's just shifting that mindset too, of knowing I do get to choose. But yeah, you're right. I mean, look, when I left my marriage, I had no job. I'd spent my savings on my divorce lawyer, and I moved, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. Worst case scenario, I'm going to pack up my son and we're going to move in with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like, but I'm going to go for this. I'm just going to, and there's also that, you know, something that I've been sitting to is that somatic, like the nervous system. Like your nervous system is only able to handle the good. It's able to handle things to the level at which you heal it. And so when I left my marriage, I got sick. My nervous system was so used to that spiked level of cortisol, and that fight or flight, walking on eggshells. I'd gotten to the point where I was just terrified every day. And so when I was on my own, excuse me, it took my body a little bit of time to come back to that safe space. Once I was there, I was able to then start working on, you know, my subconscious, my automatic nervous system, like that fight or flight. And then so a lot of work that I've done too is that embodiment, right? Connecting the head to the body to the soul. Because your head can look around and say, I'm in a safe space right now, but your body is still super triggered by the automatic nervous system and the subconscious beliefs that, no, I'm not. At any minute, someone's going to come through the door and it's going to be threatening, right? And so what that does, like being present in the moment and, you know, keep being aware of what my body is telling me, being aware of what my mind is telling me, and connecting the two of them is also a tremendous amount of work. But that was something that was really helpful in me starting to feel safe and be able to then kind of accept the good, accept the information, and start being able to put that like one foot in front of the other to make those changes as well. But without healing that, I wouldn't have been able to do that either. Like it's a lot of work, right? We're humans and we carry a lot of trauma and we carry a lot of stress, and we carry things that, and you know this, I could probably talk to this way better than I, but there are people that are not veterans that are walking around with PTSD based on things that happened in their life.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that informs our reactions. That informs how we treat other people. That informs how we raise our children. And that's a crisis. I mean, you and I have talked about this, the mental health crisis. Like there's so many people that need help, and we're here to help them. Like,
yeah. And no, you're absolutely right. And, you know, the fact is that when it comes to recovery programs that we have, just about everybody I know needs to be in recovery of one form or another, because we all have our traumas. We all have everybody. I mean, where I work right now in the hospital, the sea of misery and the sea of trauma that comes into our unit every single day is just tremendous. And we as a society are really promoting the unhealthy ways of dealing with it. I mean, because we talk about drugs and alcohol in this program quite a bit, but that's not, those are not the only manifestations, you know, pornography, gambling, gaming, relationships, food, whether it's too much or too little, or, I mean, you could go on and on, and work, you know, work can become those things. And, in a lot of ways in our society, we kind of promote these things. You know, look at the, you know, I'm not to go down a rabbit hole, but you know, legalization of marijuana, and we think, oh, well, that's a good thing. Well, actually, it's not, and we could talk about that. And so now that's just another way for people to tune out, and we're always looking for that answer outside of ourselves, some sort of a chemical
Right.
or a process that's going to help us not be able to connect with other human beings. But, this new venture that you have started in coaching, you've addressed that. And I remember a year ago when we first met and we were talking about this was a dream at your time. You're like, hey, I remember having that conversation. You said, hey, I'm going to go into coaching. And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And now you've done it. So, tell us a bit about what is it that you're doing right now? Why would explain to us, why would somebody choose to go into a coaching program? Because going into therapy now, and this is what the people listening to this need to know. There are a lot of resources out there to help you on your recovery journey. A lot. Mm-hmm. You can go to inpatient treatment. You go to outpatient treatment. You can get a therapist. You can find a licensed counselor. You can find a coach, which is what we're focusing on today. Why a coach? Why would somebody go to a coach? As opposed to going and hiring a therapist. And what is that difference? Maybe explain that a little bit.
Yeah, in my experience, look, and I've worked with both, therapist to coach. I've had both at the same time. What I found as a therapist, in my experience, a therapist focuses on kind of like what happened, like let's process the past, so we don't repeat it. And a coach really focuses on the present and how we're going to get those goals, achieve the goals in the life that you want moving forward. And so a coach is someone that also keeps you accountable, and I know for myself, like accountability was so important. That was one of the reasons when I went to treatment. Like, how many meetings did you go to? And look, I know myself, I wouldn't have gone to any meetings if nobody was asking me. And so for me, that accountability piece was, it's like if I wasn't being, because I was outpatient. And so we went in on Monday. So like, how many meetings did you go to? And some people are like, none. I'm like, I went to 2, because that was just my personality. And I wanted to be able to, I was not going to be the person that went in and said, I didn't go to any. I was too busy, or I was too tired, or I was too whatever. And so, for with my program, the program that I have, like, I really wanted to be accessible to women all the time. And so part of that program is that high touch, bespoke, like, you have access to me. Let me be clear. You have access 24 hours a day. I don't answer 24 hours a day because I also have boundaries and limitations where I spend that time with my son, with my partner, with my loved ones, like at the end of the day. Like, that's my time. So between 8 and 5, I will text you, but within 1 hour, because I could be with a client. I could be on so I don't text when I'm with another client, but within an hour, I will text you back. You have the ability to call me in between sessions. So it's a weekly session. It's on Zoom, and we use different modalities. We use some somatic work, we use breath work, we use meditation, mindfulness, yoga. So whatever we have, all because I have all of those tools and modalities, I'm able to incorporate those into my program with women. And look, there's also a lot of life experience. Good or bad, right? Like, I got sober, I went through a divorce, I've lost a parent, I'm a single mom, I have a child. So I have some of these. I've gone from working in an office to entrepreneurship. So I have those life experiences also where I've walked through it. So it's not just a hypothetical, like, well, if you want to do this, I would suggest this. It's like, this is what I did. This, it's the same thing as getting sober. It's the power of suggestion and being able to say, I've walked this path. This is what I've done. And this is how I can, recommend or inform you, and support you moving forward on your journey as well. And so it's really about that walking, like, next to somebody. It's, really no different than recovery in the beginning is having a sponsor and just having somebody be like, okay, this is what I've done. Okay, let's work on this. And so we have a lot of, inner child healing, shadow work. So there's just a lot of things that I can work with women on based on the needs that they have.
Yeah. And that's so powerful because, let me frame this here for a second.
Women are also
go ahead.
I was going to say, women also self-sacrifice a lot. Like, we carry this metaphorical tray through life, and we're like, oh, okay, children, you need that, pile it on. Okay, partner, you need that, pile it on. Okay, yeah, I'll just carry all of it. I'll do it, right? And this Eve Rodsky calls it invisible labor of women, and where we do everything from buy the clothes for the child to sign the permission slips. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but a little bit over a long period of time really adds up. And so women are carrying this invisible labor. We're carrying all of this stuff, and we don't always ask for help. And so when it comes to women, sometimes we just need someone to listen to us. You know, that it's just a safe space. There's no judgment. It's not a partner or a best friend, or, you know, maybe somebody's not understanding the sobriety journey that we're going through, or the divorce is really challenging and nobody's understanding it. It's like that safe space that we're giving women to share openly, honestly, and show up exactly how they are, be accepted and loved in the present moment.
No, that's a very, very good point. And I'll tell you something else too. I've had some discussions lately with patients, because I think you highlighted a point, because you're talking. I think one of the things that's a little different with, and just for the listeners here, I think it's an important thing for people to understand when you go out and you look for resources, right? When somebody becomes a licensed therapist, right, and you're licensed by the state, that's great. Okay, because there's certain standards that you have to meet. However, that also places certain limitations on that therapist, and it's important for people to understand. For example, a therapist can be very like a generalist. Well, like when you go into a treatment center, right? Let's say you go into an inpatient treatment center. When somebody's a therapist, you may, as a patient, you know, if you're going in there for drugs or alcohol, you may be assuming that every therapist that you're working with is a specialist in drugs and alcohol, if that's what took you into that treatment center. That is actually not the case. Many of the therapists don't have a whole lot of experience with drugs and alcohol at all. They might be licensed in family therapy, or maybe a social worker, you know, because you can still do, in the state of Virginia, where I live and you live, you can become licensed to work with people for drugs and alcohol, but not be specifically trained in that area. So that's something to consider right there. The other thing is there may be limitations on what they can promote and say to you. For example, when it comes to, let's say I'm a big AA guy. Well, I can't overtly promote one program, even though I believe that it's the most effective program out there. So there's those limitations. I think coaching sort of takes that out. Also, coaching, like if I'm talking to somebody like you can become highly specialized in that particular area, and maybe that area that you're specialized in is really what I'm struggling with. And I think that that's important, because I know that when I came into recovery, I found, like after a while of being in recovery, I was finding that many therapists I work with actually did not know a whole lot about recovery. Was that your experience?
Yes. And so I've worked with a therapist that was in recovery for like 30 years. And so that was great. But in my experience, and I'm going to same as you, I find that a lot of medical professionals are not as trained or knowledgeable in addiction medicine or recovery as I would hope or like. Many have very little training. Very little training. Yeah.
You might have 6 months in AA and actually know much more about addiction than they do.
Yeah. And not only that, there's a bias. I found there's also a bias. They're kind of like, get your shit together. And you're like, well, I'm sorry, you're a medical doctor. What do you mean get your shit together? Like, you know what I mean? Because
you're like, that's it. I wish you would have told me that a year ago. Holy cow.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I wish it was that easy, but thank you. And it's also like, and I think the medical profession, a lot of it, right? It's that idea of like, take a pill, you'll be better, right? And the idea of coaching and therapy is getting to the root of it, right? Like figuring out why, so you don't continue to repeat that pattern moving forward, or you don't continuously have those thoughts that inform your decisions as you continue to go through life. Like, let's look at why versus like, let's slap a Band-Aid on it and get you back out there. And I feel like that's kind of the difference in a lot of, again, just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think that experience is moving forward. And if I can give some advice, and I'll get your thoughts on this, if I can give some advice to anybody out there listening to this podcast that is struggling and is trying to get well, and I will tell you, in my own journey in recovery, I had many years of relapsing, and by the time I came into recovery, I actually knew a fair amount about recovery, but I wasn't doing what I'm about to explain to you, and see, and maybe you can relate to this, because you're an athlete, a very accomplished athlete, and maybe you can relate to this example. So I was listening to another podcast about a month and a half ago, and the guy, he's a nutritionist. He's being interviewed, right? And when I say nutritionist, he's working with elites, NFL players, Olympic athletes, things like that. So he's a nutritionist coach, right? And he's being interviewed, and the person interviewing him says, hey, is it not true that 95% of all diets don't work? So that's the question given to this guy. And his answer I thought was very interesting, and I thought I had a real recovery response or a relation. There's a relationship between what he was talking about and recovery. He said to the interviewer, well, I really don't like how you posed the question. He said, there's another way of looking at that. He said, you said 95% of all diets don't work. And he said, there's another way of looking at that. And that is that 5% do. And he said, here's the thing. Yeah. And he said, here's the thing. You're focused on the 95% that are not having success. I'm focused on the 5% that are having success. Because the fact is, in the nutrition and diet world, most of the people actually know what they need to do. This isn't rocket science. It's not. He said, but that 5% that do have success actually do what they know they need to do. And I thought about that because in recovery, in the treatment center where I work, most patients that actually come in, unless they're brand new, unless it's their first treatment episode and they've never been exposed to anything, and we do get those people, but not many. Most of them actually know. If I was to ask the patient, what should you do to get sober? Most of the patients actually rattle off the right information. So you're left to conclude, just like this guy, it's not that you don't know, it's that you're not doing what you know. And so with coaching, like with what you're doing, the experience that you have, right? The experience that you have and the success in navigating being a single mom, going through divorce, searching for a job, going through a death, and all those things. You've been through that and you've stayed sober through that. So as far as I'm concerned, you are the elite athlete. If I'm coming into recovery, right? Like for example, you have a very powerful swim background, right? You have been one of the elite swimmers in the nation, right? You're like in that top 1% of all swimmers in the world. So if I want to go learn how to swim, I'm coming to you, right? And I'm not going to spend a summer with you teaching me how to swim and go, well, you know what? Thanks, Hilary. Thanks for all that. But I have my own, you know what? I have my own way. See, like this doggy style that I do, that works pretty well for me, right?
It's more effective than that. Yeah.
See, now in that scenario, we laugh about it. We go, well, that's silly, right? Oh, yeah. Why would I go to Hilary Phelps and then ignore everything she told me about swimming? That sounds silly. But in recovery, we do that I see it every single day. I come to somebody like you and ask you about recovery, and you tell me what you did in recovery, and then I go, yeah, but I got my own way. Now, I know you see that in recovery meetings too, right? So, but that's what you bring is that experience.
Right? Is that there are different ways to do it, and I love that you said that in the beginning. Like there are different ways, right? It's kind of like interviewing for a job or dating or whatever it is. Like you're going to find things you're going to be like, that sucks. Nope, I'm not going back there. Nope, didn't like that boss. Like whatever it is. But then you're going to find things that you like. So some of it is trial, or going to meetings you don't like. Like you're going to go into meetings that like, didn't like that one, not going back. Or I didn't like that yoga class. And so some of it's trial and error. But yes, you're right. If you're seeking out expertise or help from somebody, and you're just like, I don't like it. I think there's a difference. I don't like it versus I'm not willing to try it. Right? Those are kind
good
of two
point.
Things, right? Because I can say like, I don't like that idea, but I'm going to try it based on your experience because it looks like you've had success in whatever it is I want to do. So I'm going to trust you enough to at least try it out. Right. And I think that's the difference. And like people, it's like taking that step from, I don't like it to, you know what, I'm willing to try anything. And that's where I was, that desperation. When I first got sober, I was willing to try anything that anybody told me because I did not want to go back to where I was. And I think we get to those points in our life and that can be, right. And that's where that coaching of whether it's getting sober, going through a divorce, getting a new job, being a single mom, being a mom, period, like those things, right? And so it's like, I don't really like the idea of trying that, but right now I have that gift of desperation that I'm willing to do whatever in order to feel better. And do whatever healthy thing. Let me be clear about that. Not do whatever to feel better, because we can all find those things that make us feel better that aren't necessarily healthiest.
I think that's what it comes down to. I think that that's true. I've seen that. That's been my experience, particularly in the hospital, that until that patient, and it was true of you and true of me, that you definitely, you have to get to that point to where you are willing to listen, and then take that next step and act. And that was this guy's point in this podcast, was that the 95% have that knowledge, but the other 5%, for whatever reason, said, I want to lose weight, I want to get into shape, I'm training for something, and I am willing to listen to somebody that has experience and then execute what they just said and do it, and then get into that 5%. Because the people that get into long-term recovery do that, not just know it, but they do it. They actually, if I want to lose weight, I've got to change my diet, I've got to exercise, I've got to hydrate, I've got to sleep. I can't just talk about it. I have to do it.
There's no shortcuts.
Right.
And I think that people, like, we're looking for the shortcuts, or we're looking to blame somebody else. Well, I'm too busy, or, oh, well, if this person didn't do that to me, well, then I wouldn't be in this situation. It's like, you know what? Sometimes life sucks. So pick yourself up. You know what I mean? Like, make a decision and change.
That's it.
Do it. Like, because again, we're 100% responsible, right? Like, I am responsible. If somebody's treating me shitty, it is up to me whether or not I want to stay or go.
You give them permission to treat you that way. You give them the permission to treat you that way.
Well, by staying, right? By staying, you give them that permission. You're allowing it, right? But getting up and leaving, or like leaving, and I get it. Like, sometimes it's hard. The example you said about being a single mom in a government job, and maybe you don't have the ability to leave and do something else. Like, sometimes there's situations and circumstances that don't. But at the end of the day, and then we can change our mindset, right? Then it's and that's what this woman I worked with was so powerful, because I remember I was like pinching pennies when I first left, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna make. I don't know. I'm paying my child's school, and I'm paying my rent, and I'm paying all this stuff. Like, fuck, this sucks. And she looked at me and she goes, "Okay, do you have the money?" I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Then write that check with gratitude every day, because if you didn't, it would be a different story." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So sometimes it's just simply about reframing it. Like, as I send that check, it's like, do I want to? No, I'd love to have that money for something else. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful that I do, to put a roof over my child's head. Like, that's it. And sometimes it is that simple, as just reframing that in our mind to shift to how we feel, to kind of inform the rest of our day. I mean, it really is that simple, but people are so, there are a lot of people are unwilling to even say that. Gratitude's so powerful. So powerful.
Oh, it is. It is. And I think it's a great way to look at it. It is. Yeah. And I think the part of it too is that we, like, going back to the example with the, you feel like you're stuck in a government job and you're a single mom, or you think, I think sometimes that where people get really wrapped up in it, one, being grateful that you have that job, because a lot of people don't have that kind of security. And then also realizing that our whole focus becomes our job. And I think, and better than I do in coaching, is I think sometimes just realizing, hey, I'm grateful to have this job, but I have other interests. I think, because the problem is, if you look at like, oh my God, I'm locked in this job and I hate it, and that's all you think about is you get up every day and you think about this job. I think with somebody like that, I would be asking them, but what are your other interests? Do you have hobbies, or do you have, what other goals do you have? Because that's something I did in recovery, was I started getting into other things. when I first got into recovery, I got back into diet and exercise and set goals, whether it was a race or some big, for me, big and we don't do anything half-assed, right? So, I started making not just plans, but big plans. Like, I did a 50-mile race, and, because go big, right? Go big or go home. But you know what it did? It gave me goals in my life, big goals in my life, that were not my job. And so I had other things. I wasn't just, when I got up in the morning, I found that the first thing I would think about wasn't just another day at work, but, I got to do this kind of training. I've got to do that training. I had things that took me mentally away from my job. So I had other things to focus on than being unhappy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and it's also just reframing it as like, I have to do this. I get to do this.
Yeah.
I should do this. I want to do this.
Yep.
Right. It is literally those little changes that will impact everything. Like, now I notice how much I say should. When we say should, we're automatically shaming and making ourselves wrong.
No, I
should get up and work out, but I want to sit here instead. So I'm making myself wrong, versus I want to sit here for 10 more minutes before I get up to work out. Or I want to sit here all day. I don't want to work out at all. We're taking the power back. We're making that choice. You know what? Versus like, I should, we're telling ourselves we're wrong.
Yeah. Well, now for your business, so tell us about how would somebody get hold of you, and what? Tell us a bit more about that, because I know that there's going to be people listening that want to contact you and work with you. So walk us through that process.
Yes, I am on HilaryPhelps.com. It's with one L. There's a coaching tab, and then so there's a 12-week program called The Right Room, and it's also kind of spelled out on there. And it's where we focus, 3 weeks on each: the emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental health. And then there's kind of one-off. So sometimes we don't, sometimes we just need a month. Sometimes we maybe need 2 months. Sometimes we just need a check-in call every now and then. And so that's also an option. But on the website, under the coaching, there's a button that you can click for a complimentary discovery call. And it's just a really beautiful conversation where we jump on a Zoom for 30 minutes and kind of, talk to you like, what are your, what is it that you want? What are your goals? What are some things that bring you to coaching? And then we see from there if it's a good fit, because it's really a partnership. It's not about me telling you what to do or guide, you're the hero. I'm just your guide. Right? And so I want to make sure that you are getting the benefit, that I'm able to help you and support you in the best way that I can. And sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's okay. And I have resources, and I have other women I work with that I can guide you to, or maybe it's really therapy that you want or need. But I love just having those conversations to find out a little bit more about what it is that brings you to the call today, and then make a plan on how we can work together moving forward.
Oh, that's great. Now, is this just for women, or could men call as well?
Yeah, it's really focused on women. I do have, I am working with a man now, but
it's primarily focused on women.
Sign up, Mike. I'll work with you if you want to. I'm kidding.
We'll do what now?
Oh, yeah, it's primary. I was just teasing. I said, if you want to sign up for coaching, I'll work with you.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked. I'm like, wait a minute. If I called Hilary, because I could definitely use that work. No, I think that's fantastic. And it's a 12-week program, correct?
Yes. So the Right Room is a 12-week program. And it's a once weekly Zoom call. It's for 1 hour. And then it's that high touch personal contact and connection in between calls. So it's constant, because sometimes when you're working through things, just like in recovery, things come up and you're like, wait a second, or you're in a situation like, I don't know what to think about it. It's like sometimes you just need another person to kind of walk you through it and say like, okay, how do you feel? Let's focus on this. What do you think? Okay, and then you just need a little touch point every now and then. And so that's what the 12-week program offers. And then the one-off coaching is kind of like those tune-ups. Maybe we just need to check in. Maybe just need a little bit of accountability. Maybe we just need to develop a plan. And over the next 4 weeks, we'll develop that plan. And then, so it's less kind of high touch. It's more of those tune-ups. Mm-hmm. But the 12-week program is really the kind of the keystone of the coaching platform.
Well, I think it's a good program.
We'll do some other things moving. Thank you.
Because I will tell you that people, when Hilary and I were talking earlier about going to therapists, and therapists are great. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong on that. And I think that sometimes that's necessary. But I am a big fan, and the longer I'm around this business and the longer I'm in my own recovery, I think finding people that have personally had experience in this, like Hilary has, is the best option. I really do. And when you get into particularly when it comes to recovery matters, being with someone that has walked that walk, not just the training, the professional training, but has walked that walk, is so powerful. I hear that from patients all the time. Mm-hmm. They tell me, they go, they'll say, I know that you know what you're talking about because you've been there. Because I do disclose to patients that in my own journey, and it's just amazing how much they pay real close attention to what you have to say, and I think that's a fantastic thing.
Thank you. All those things I've walked through in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, exactly. It becomes experiential versus hypothetical.
So it's HilaryPhelps.com. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
HilaryPhelps.com. Mm-hmm. And that's one L in Hilary, and then PHELPS, HilaryPhelps.com. And The Right Room, man, fantastic.
That's it.
Fantastic journey. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to talk to you, and I'm glad we were able to reconnect, and I yeah, look forward to sitting down and hearing more about what you're doing and connecting more soon. This is great. Thank you.
Oh, you don't want to hear about what I'm doing. That would probably make you go out and seek a therapist if you did that. No, but it's so great to have you. HilaryPhelps.com. So Hilary Phelps, the right room. You guys, please check that out because recovery is possible. You can do it. I know that you can. You just have to do what we talked about, and that is reach out. Have that gift of desperation. Reach out. Get help because there is help out there. And please do that, guys, because when I look out across the land and I see so many people suffering, it doesn't have to be that way. Life can get better. Recovery is possible. We just have to be willing to listen, take that action, and go out and utilize the resources that we have. And so with that, guys, we will talk to you next week, and take care. This episode of Recovery is Possible is brought to you by Retreat Behavioral Health, where there are endless possibilities for recovery. Retreat provides quality care at their leading mental health and substance use treatment centers, which are designed to offer patients truly personalized and comprehensive programs that are tailored to their needs. Retreat substance use and mental health treatment centers in Palm Beach County, Florida, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and New Haven, Connecticut do everything in their power to ensure that patients receive the highest quality treatment in a safe and comfortable setting. So reach out today at retreatbehavioralhealth.com or call at 855-802-6600 for more information.